So the way that I'm defining pure reasoning is through using logic. And of course we can't have pure logic that's devoid of psychology, but we can have pure logic. So what I mean by checking one's own psychology and its influence on our logic, our reasoning, is to see whether we're constrained or we're being forced by particular preconceptions or particular attachments to how we want things to play out, based on these underlying emotional gravities, if you like. We have to really beware if we want to critique intelligently and if we want to interpret what we experience as purely as possible. We have to be aware, self-aware of the influence of any attachments, that is, any preconceptions or any form of sort of mental gravity lingering in certain areas of experience, and assuming that those sorts of areas are fundamentally, what should I say, intrinsically true and reliable and unchangeable, permanent. Now, I won't get into that. I was going to make try to clarify a difference between the permanence in meaning of an absolute logical truth and the permanence of a belief, but I can go into that later. There is a difference there, or that's just a bookmark. So I'll just borrow the light and check my next note. Yeah, so what the intelligent critiquer has to do in checking their motivation is they have to ask themselves questions, particularly when they're critiquing what comes to them from other people. If they can't really, they can't directly access the meanings that another person has, so they have to be careful when they critique. They can't be certain at all that the meanings that they attribute to other people's words are accurate, but the most intelligent way to critique another person's words is to check first one's own psychology and motivations. The purer one's mind is, the more devoid of psychological attachments such as pride or vanity, reputation, anger, love, all these sorts of attachments of the mind, they're sort of subtle movements in the mind, will influence and will distort one's ability, one's reasonings, one's interpretations, one's ability to detect what another person is actually saying, because one will project these kinds of preconceptions onto what they're expressing. We can't be certain, but we can reduce the likelihood of being completely wrong when we critique another person's words. So the intelligent critiquer has to ask themselves questions like, why am I doing this critique? Do I gain from it in any way whatsoever? Am I actually approaching this for the benefit of wisdom, for the progressing of wisdom, or is there a prejudice in my mind? Is there like a deeper kind of blockage to reasoning that I'm subverting? A person has to think about all this stuff first, go through all that, and it's painful. It can be painful, but that's absolutely necessary, because there is a responsibility in making judgments. The mind that that analyses and thinks can't help but make judgments, but those judgments can be pure or impure. So that if one makes judgments, one is necessarily claiming to be an authority. And if you're going to take that burden on, you really need to bear it with integrity. And so the whole process of reflection is absolutely vital, so far as I can see, to critiquing intelligently. So just to recapitulate, consciousness can't be escaped, one's own consciousness, one's own subjectivity, what one is. Necessarily there are going to be memories and various prior meanings that help one to understand and to interpret. Necessarily there are going to be values and drives, all that makes up one's own psychology. So one has to be careful of the influence of impure drives in interpreting things, and especially the words of others. So the whole private process of self-awareness, self-critique and reflection is vital to intelligent experience. So there's a point here to make as an aside. If you're going to take the burden of the authority for making judgments, then be qualified. That is, be aware, be self-aware. Check first to see whether you actually have the flaw or the error in your own self before you criticise it in other people, because you wouldn't be able to offer the solution if you haven't overcome the issue in yourself first. Even if you have an intuition about what the other person needs to do, if you haven't actually gone through the process of overcoming the flaw, you aren't qualified. So really it's very important that you take the time to go through that process. You'll be much the better for it. So don't just apologise first. Fix your own character and mental state. So, once you've done that, you might actually find that there's your purpose in speaking to correct the other person might actually disappear, so that you save yourself the energy. And you might find that once you've gone through that process, your own reasoning is improved, and you might find, well, the situation still justifies a response. So thank you for your time.